welcome to Enquire to Choir. My name is Eva and I'm here to help you, fellow choir people. Once upon a time in 2017, I made the very first video here for the channel that had the same title as this one, How to Organize a Choir. I stand by that video. It doesn't matter how bad the picture is, but I've been through so much as a choir director. I met many other choirs and I worked with many other choirs since then. So I wanted to expand on this topic because I think there are things to be said. The point of this video is not to organize your choir immediately, but just to open up the topic about this because I really feel that the organization is very important. We are dealing with people and it doesn't matter how big or small your choir is. You probably know there is a reason why project management and people management and HR are very important. So let's start with the video. Okay, so first of all, when we talk about organizing your choir, we have to divide and conquer. We actually have 3 levels of this management. We have your choir singers. Above them is the choir management. Choir management is in charge of everything that concerns choir members, choir music, choir work in every possible way, and we'll talk about it, how to organize them. In that management, you have to have people who are there and who work, who do the things they're supposed to do. If your choir is owned by someone, if it is a choir that is in the institution of some kind, in a church, at a university, at a school, at a firm, then the choir bosses are also a part of the choir management, because it is really easy to conclude that it doesn't matter what happens in the choir if you don't have the support of the higher up management from your bosses, then you don't have a choir. So it is important to think about that kind of a management, even with the fact that you cannot choose who your choir boss is. But the choir management consisted of people who are also probably singing in the choir. It's really natural for the people who are singing in the choir that they want to make the choir better and work on the choir management because they have an input, they care, so they want to take care of the choir that way. So it really makes sense to assemble the choir management from the current choir singers. I know there are a lot of choirs out there who need democracy in the choir. So even if you're a choir director, you don't have the executive function, you don't have the authority to come to a decision. You have to ask the whole choir and the whole choir has to come to a decision, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of things can get complicated. Here in Croatia, we have a saying, "Sto baba kilavo dijete," which means 100 grandmothers makes for a very slow-moving baby. You know how it is, many opinions, people are different, and to come to a single conclusion is very hard. So if you have a position of being choir director of that choir, you maybe don't have the executive function, but you have the authority and you can ask for the authority to handle some decisions. In general, we're now talking about how to assemble your choir management. How many people should you have in the choir management? It depends, of course, on your choir. But when you are assembling it, you have to think of these questions. If something comes up, any kind of a situation, any kind of a question from any person in the world, do you have a person on the team who knows the answer? Do you have a person whose field that is? That particular question, that particular topic that has come up, who is in charge of that field of questions? Whose responsibility is this? Who informs others about this particular topic? And who informs the choir members? These are the 5 questions you need to have answered for every management question. You may be thinking, oh, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And of course, you cannot predict every question that you will ever have. But the problem with not having at least some of the situations predicted. Some of the people dedicated to certain topics and certain fields of possible choir interventions is then when eventually the topic arises, everybody thinks that it's someone else's responsibility and nobody does the thing they're supposed to do. Everybody thinks that someone else is in charge of that because they know that they themselves are not. Who is in charge? You need to have a hierarchy. And it's very wise to have two people that have the executive function when it comes to the choir management. And that, I suggest, could be the choir director and the choir president. Listen, it doesn't matter who is in your choir. You have to have a choir director, the choir conductor who works with the choir when it comes to the music part. You need to have a separate person who is in charge of everything else and everyone else. It is not very wise to have the same person being the choir director and the choir president. For many reasons. The first reason is nobody can do everything all of the time. Don't put all the eggs in a single basket. And the second, you need to have a conversation. If you have a single person that's making all of the decision, then you have a problem. A single person cannot be right all of the time. The executive function, the authority function, the decision making when it comes to the music is the choir directors. Choir president is in charge of everything else when it comes to the management of the choir. I would say that the choir director and the choir president are equal when it comes to the amount of the authority, and they should aim to work in accordance with each other. So if something arises, then they talk about it, decide together what works from the music perspective, what works from the management perspective, and they come to the conclusion, and then they work from there. The choir president and the choir director are also the people who talk with your choir bosses. If the choir owners have questions, then they know who's in charge of the choir and they know who they can ask, the choir president and the choir director. Of course, it turns out that this way the choir president has a lot more management things to do, and that's why the choir president chooses a team. I would suggest that the choir president chooses the team from the choir members that are currently in the choir, but the whole choir has to agree. Who chooses the choir president? The choir director has an audition, and it's much more straightforward because you have to have a person that knows what he or she is doing. But when it comes to being the choir president, then I suggest that the whole choir chooses who the choir president is. You can nominate someone. The person can say, I am willing to be the choir president if I have your support. There needs to be a consensus when it comes to choosing the people who are in charge. That's the democracy part. And that takes care of the why should we listen to you? Then you have a reply to that because you chose the choir president. The choir president has a team. Don't do everything on your own. There are too many things you have to do. Maybe not in this moment in time, but trust me, there will come a time, the part of the choir season, the concert season, when there is just too much to do. So you need a team. But I would suggest that you have boards. Very logical, okay? You have boards that are in charge of a certain field, a certain topic, a certain problem. The board talks to each other, is informed when it comes to anything that is concerning their topic. And if somebody has a question when it comes to a certain topic, then you have a dedicated board for that topic and dedicated people in that board who can answer the question. I will mention now several topics that from my experience should be taken care of. That doesn't mean that you should have this many boards. Board topics can overlap. Okay, so the first one is choir members. Who communicates with the choir members and which way? Who takes care of the WhatsApp group? Who takes care of the emailing list, the attendance? Who takes care of the profile of every choir member? Who answers the choir members' questions? Who takes the choir members' questions to the management? Who knows the situation when it comes to every choir member? It's important that you have a person or several persons for that. especially when it comes to who your choir members, choir singers can talk to if there's something to be said. You need to have people who are in charge of your rehearsals when it comes to organizing them. They don't happen by themselves. Is the rehearsal space reserved? Is it available? Can you have a rehearsal? Somebody has to take care of that in advance. Who takes care of the scores being printed, being copied? Who takes care of the score maps your choir members have? Who takes care of that there are enough chairs, enough places to sit in your rehearsal space? Who takes care of the piano or a certain kind of other instrument being available in the venue? And that's very important because rehearsals happen all the time, okay? That's always a current thing. When it comes to the performances, when it comes to the choir, I would strongly suggest you have a person that is in charge of the clothes. I know that seems very trivial, but trust me, it is not. I even mentioned here on the channel in the video about choir myths that I experienced. It doesn't matter if you have the uniform, somebody always has a question. When it comes to the finances, you should have the board for the finances. You need to have a treasurer. You need to have someone who will do the financial reporting, someone who knows everything about the choir's finances and can intervene and has the function of being able to intervene and do the transactions and talk about money and negotiating money and informing or warning the choir that some things are not going right and you should be careful. Financial planning, financial situations. You should have members, and anytime that something comes up when it comes to the finances, if somebody paid the bill, if there is a membership fee and somebody is not paying, etc., you know what finances are. So yes, this is not something that I need to have because this particular topic is handled by my choir owners. But when it comes to legal things, you need to have someone who at least knows who to ask when it comes to the intellectual property, when it comes to the performances, the ownership of your performances. A very big thing nowadays is PR. That is a huge thing, and social media, emails, informing the media when it comes to PR releases, handling the website, communicating with everyone when it comes to information about a certain performance, about the choir. You need to have a board for that. Especially, you need to have a person that is in charge of reading every single day emails that come to the choir and the messages that come in the social media messengers. You need to have a person whose job is to read everything, because that's the first thing that goes. If you have, several people working on several things, and then you think, well, of course somebody's reading these emails, or you read the email and you think, well, somebody probably already answered that. Trust me, if everything else goes, this should not. You have to have a person. It will save you. I know you may be thinking, well, that seems like a lot of work. Isn't it just simpler to have a few people that take care of that? Of course, you can upsize or downsize. It depends on the choir. You know your choir best. I'm just saying with this video, something will come up and it's better to be prepared. You need to have those questions answered. Choir members, choir singers that are only choir singers, they do not have to know everything that happens in the choir management. It's really non-efficient if they know every single thing. That's the point of the management. And managing people and managing everything is a complex thing. And if you have never done it, you don't know how difficult and extensive it can be. And if you only have the choir director and the choir president, that is okay. But just know that sometimes there is so much work that a single person cannot take care of everything. Okay, so that's it. Wow, it's a really nice thing to be back to a certain topic I've already handled. I do stand by the video that was made 6.5 years ago now. So I will suggest you go watch it because you will see baby Eva. This question is the reason why I started the channel, because I realized that nobody is willing to give the answer. So I was like, well, so many people ask me that question, so maybe I should answer that in a YouTube video. And look what we have now. Okay, so thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I know you're surprised you're getting a new video so fast, but I had some free time, so I wanted to talk to you. That said, I think that I forgot to say goodbye in a traditional Enquire to Choir way here in the last video. So I will do it now, but twice in a row, okay? So I can make up for that error. Conduct well, conductors, and I'll see you next time. Conduct well, conductors, and I'll see you next time. Bye!